We weren't gonna wait any longer. Because these guys know how to make
Parking garage door was already open, or I would have been a minute later.
a minute later or a minute late.
Later.
Okay, thank you.
I know, it really does. It's like, whoa, score.
I guess we're going, so good morning. It is Wednesday, July 2nd, 2014, and we're in the Senator Hearing Room, Courthouse Square, 555 Court Street Northeast in Salem for a weekly Board of Commissioners meeting. 4th of July is this week, so staying in theme, we'll start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have no one signed up to speak under public comment. Again, that is an opportunity for you to come and tell us anything you may like to do. And we start our meeting with it, so it's quick and painless, but nobody comes. But we do have, and I hope you're getting ready, breaking out those glasses for one of the longer consent calendars I've seen in a while. And if you'd like to begin, Commissioner Carlson.
Sure, Mr. Chair, I would move today's consent calendar. Under Assessor, approve an order reappointing Dennis Taylor to the Farm Review Board for a term ending June 30th, 2016. Under Board of Commissioners, approve a memorandum of understanding for disbursement of Oregon State Lottery funds to the following companies: Sudcor, $175,000, Travel Salem, $100,000, and Grow North Santiam, $60,000. Community Services, approve an order reappointing Gladys Blum, Sam Brentano, Faye Fagel, Karina Lee, and Pete McCallum to the Marion County Children and Families Commission to terms ending June 30th, 2018. Under Health Department, approve amendment number 15 to add $614,509 to the agreement with the Oregon Health Authority for financial assistance to operate community addictions and mental health services. Under Public Works, notice of bid award to R&R General Contractors, Inc. for $1,428,000 for the Auburn Road, Lancaster, Baldwin Avenue sidewalks and bike lane project. Notice of bid award with Blackline, Inc. for $123,051.75 for the furnishing and applying of Type 2 slurry seal on various Marion County road projects. Notice of bid award for Babb Construction Company for $1,142,173.27 for the Whipper Road Perrin Irrigation Canal Bridge project. Under Sheriff, approve contract with Bridgeway Recovery Services for $54,080 to provide evidence-based system of substance abuse treatment for adult offenders. Approve contract with Northwest Human Services for $101,045 to perform psychiatric assessments for parole and probation clients. Approve amendment number 1 with Bridgeway Recovery Services for $129,395 to provide evidence-based practices to adult offenders and extend the agreement until June 30th, 2015. Approve an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon State Marine Board for $149,331 to provide patrol services on Oregon's waterways. Approve amendment number 2 with Keefe Commissary Network to renew for an additional 2-year term through June 30th, 2016 for food services, commissary services, and inmate trust fund management. Approve amendment number 3 with the City of Sublimity for $157,304 to provide patrol services through the city and extend agreement until June 30th, 2015. Under Tax Collector, approve an order designating the Woodburn Independent as the newspaper for publication of the Marion County Tax Foreclosure List. Under Treasurer, approve a resolution eliminating the change funds for the East and North Marion Justice Courts in the amount of $700. Approve resolutions eliminating the following petty cash funds: East Marion Justice Court, $250, Elections Division of the Clerk's Office, $100, and Health Department Cottages Program, $50. Approve a resolution establishing a change fund of $300 for the Marion County Justice Court. And the last one, approve a petty cash account for $250 for the Health Department CAPS Division.
Mr. Chair, I'll second the motion
All
for
right,
the
so
consent calendar.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar this morning. Any further discussion? Hearing that, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. We have 3 action items. 2 of them are related. The first is under Community Services. Consider adoption of an ordinance revising and updating the County Code, Chapter 6.05, relating to dog control by emergency procedure. Tammy Getch, Sonia Pulvers, and Bruce Armstrong sneaking in. Tammy, you're first, so go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Chair. My name is Tamara Getch, Director of Community Services. We have an item here before you for the Marion County Dog Services, which is underneath the Community Services Department to get to the right one. Consider ordinance amending code to include animal rescue entity registration and enforcement. And I have with me today staff member from our dog shelter as well as legal counsel.
Sonia?
Good morning, Commissioners and Chair. My name is Sonia Pulvers. I'm an office manager with Dog Services.
And I can jump in. Bruce Armstrong, I'm an assistant legal counsel with Marion County Legal Counsel. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, we've gone through some process relating to animal rescue entities. The board, it was brought to the board's attention initially at a management update and then brought before the board, I believe, at a May 6, 2014 management update public meeting. And the board provided direction and staff went back and developed a code language, and then the proposed language was brought before the board June 16th for consideration, and the board gave additional direction, and now this is before the board for consideration of this ordinance amending our code provisions. In the 2013 legislature, Senate Bill 6 was passed that, among other things, increased criminal penalties for animal abuse and neglect cases. But as part of that, there was a requirement that counties regulate and undergo some inspection of animal rescue entities. And an animal rescue entity is defined as an individual or an organization that keeps, houses, maintains, or has custody of 10 or more animals and that accepts or solicits donations. So the important factors are, it's not just dogs, it's not just cats, it is animals. There are a few exceptions because boarding kennels are regulated separately. That is carved out. But it applies to our dog shelter because we have 10 or more and we accept donations. It applies to the Humane Society, but it also applies to a host of other individuals and organizations operating in Marion County that have custody of 10 or more animals and that accept or solicit donations. So the one important thing is the legislation does not establish any habitability standards for the keeping of these animals, but it establishes record-keeping requirements and requires that if you constitute an animal rescue entity, you have to be licensed or registered with a county or city wherever dog control is operated. And for Marion County operates all dog control within the county. No city operates a dog control program. So the county has this responsibility under the statute, and what's before you is a proposed regulatory scheme that follows what the statute lays out, which is 10 or more animals that are, again, kept or where their custody is had. We added clarification because of our staff's experience. The analysis of the legislation indicates that custody includes both legal and physical custody. So even if you're an entity that has control, makes decisions, obtains the animals, and then farms them out to foster homes, we clarified that if you have control, charge, and responsibility or ownership of 10 or 20 animals, but if you farm them out, say 5 to a foster home here, which is fairly common, 5 to a foster home there, 5 to another foster home, you are an animal rescue entity under our code and under the statute as well. But we added that clarification. So for the most part, our language mirrors what the statute lays out, But one of the tweaks within our definition of animal rescue entity is we added the language that custody means both physical custody, having physical custody of the animal, as well as legal custody, having the authority to make decisions or of where that animal goes. So that was one of our tweaks.
Bruce, if I could interrupt you there, so does it matter if those, you may have control, but they're kept in Lynn County, for example? Are we still taking a position there?
If you are operating in Marion County, if I just go back to the definition, and if you have control and that covers, and you are operating here in Marion County, and you have, basically, if you have control of 10 or more animals and you're accepting donations, then yes, it would.
Couple different things. I know we've talked about it just so people know. So how will you contact people that you think fit that category, and what is the penalty if you're doing that without this license or whatever it will be?
The plan is initially in working with code enforcement. It will be dog services, and code enforcement will be doing an education process initially. The goal isn't to go out and enforce and impose penalties. The first step is to educate, and I think the dog control has a plan for that. If an entity does not register, so our requirement is that if you are an animal rescue entity, you must register with Marion County through dog control. If you don't do that, the penalty, you may be cited into justice court, and the maximum penalty is $500 for a violation. As I said, that's not the goal initially, but that's our Marion County's practice is obtaining compliance, and we would use that to bring someone into compliance. But that is ultimately, if somebody just said, no, I'm not, I refuse to do that, then a penalty of up to $500 could be imposed.
Okay.
So the basic requirements are that an animal rescue entity register with the county, and consistent with the statute, an animal rescue entity must maintain specific records on each animal when they obtain possession. They have to have a picture of the animal taken within 24 hours of intake, date of birth, some general information. And significantly, they must allow the county representatives to enter and inspect the premises and the record keeping to ensure compliance. And that was a critical piece, because we had there was at least one highly publicly noted incident with Willamette Animal Rescue, which is an ongoing case, where there were many dogs in very poor condition. But driving force of this legislation was the difficulty of law enforcement to get onto property with a criminal warrant. So a key piece of this is, if you are an animal rescue entity, that you have to allow county representatives to inspect the property. If not, we can get an administrative warrant, to get onto the property. So there's the record keeping requirement, there's the requirement to allow inspection of the premises and the records, and those are pretty much, that lays out what our proposed code would have. It also specifies that code enforcement will handle any enforcement. Dog control would handle initial investigations, but if there's a need to get onto the property, that would be done through code enforcement, where dog control and code enforcement would work together to pursue any enforcement cases. And I just wanted to note one other thing we added at the beginning. You'll notice at the beginning of this ordinance that has code changes, we've updated this was a housekeeping item. We've updated a couple of the definitions, because dog control used to be in Public Works, and dog control director and manager have been updated to indicate that community services director is now the director, not the Public Works director, and same thing for the shelter manager. But that's a quick run through. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I don't know if Sonia Pulvers wanted to speak to what we know about the entities that exist in Marion County.
I would like to clarify that as we move forward, education is going to be a large piece of what we're going to be doing for the first year. We plan on doing some media releases, sending out letters to the entities that we do know of, and having positive communications with as many people involved in rescues or even on the outskirts, and making the process as easy as possible and as positive as possible, so it doesn't feel like this is a punitive type ordinance. So.
All right, Commissioner Cameron, I know you wanted to say something earlier.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple questions I have. One is, if somebody is taking care of 10 animals or more but not accepting donations, they don't have to comply with the registration, is that true?
That is, Commissioner, that is correct. It's either you have to have the requisite number of animals and accept or solicit donations.
Okay. Which comes to my next question, the legislative wisdom that was behind this bill. This is my first...
Or lack thereof, excuse me.
Well, I'm not going to say that, Mr. Chair.
did.
You can comment on that. You can check my record on the vote over at the Capitol on this bill. This is the first time I've, got to experience this, the legislative wisdom of a bill being passed and now being implemented at the county because of the wisdom of people in the other building. What would happen to the county if we refused to implement this?
Aside from the political issues or public relations issues, conceivably there are times when someone can obtain a writ of mandamus to require a public official to take certain actions. If our general practice, obviously, and history has been to comply with the mandates that are passed down, so we don't have much experience with that, but there are no penalties, but the one, like I mentioned, there is a process in place in the law for an individual to go to court and require a public official to act consistently with the law, and that is a writ of mandamus proceeding.
Thank you. And then one last question. So since this was, if I may, Mr.
Sure.
Chair, since this was wisdom from above that we have to implement, how many dollars flowed with this particular piece of legislation to the county to implement it?
$0, Commissioner. There is a provision that allows the county to charge a reasonable fee to offset costs, and I believe that was added in the belief that can support the program. The reality may be that to dollar for dollar match the costs with if the fee was set at a rate to truly capture the costs to the county, it would be a very high fee for a number of these smaller entities. For some of the larger entities, it may not be an issue, but it would be a larger fee. What we're coming before the board today with is a fee that offsets costs, but it's not. Others can speak to that, but my understanding is it's not dollar for dollar matching the costs.
Thank you, Bruce. Mr. Chair, and I'll reserve the rest of the questions until we get to the actual approval of the fee, but I'd like to maybe get into what those actual costs are on the record.
Well, I had wanted
Thank
it,
you.
maybe you're going to be getting to it. So does someone know how many entities we expect to see here in Marion County?
We've researched the rescue entities that we can locate using the internet, making phone calls. We're guessing maybe 30 that we know of. There could be more, there could be fewer, until we actually start having some conversations with the animal community. It's a guess. We're thinking maybe 30.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I do have a few questions. So we had quite a bit of discussion about this, and now it's finally here in a final form, and thank you for your work on that. I'd want to piggyback on a couple of questions Commissioner Cameron asked. So the first question on the no donations, are there other entities out there that would have more than 10 animals in the type of situation that this legislation is expected to address that would not accept donations? Or is the accepting donations part a good filter for identifying what these organizations are? I'm just asking because, as Bruce mentioned, the problem that this legislation was attempting to solve was the fact that there were these malnourished and mistreated dogs that were collected and piled up by people that really had great intentions, from what I understand, but kind of got beyond the scope of their ability to manage it. And we had difficulty, as Bruce said, as a county, getting on the property to be able to do anything. And people were calling and saying, do something. And, we were going out there, but weren't able to do anything. So this law was trying to address that. If you have the same type of entity, a couple people with really good intentions, and by the simple fact that they're not soliciting donations, they can continue to do the activities that the legislation was trying to address. Is that a concern, or do we believe that everyone that is doing this type of work is also a charitable organization? And then the flip side of the question is, I guess there could be private individuals that are just hoarders of animals that have like millions of cats or whatever. So can you talk me through that scenario?
The issue with and accepting donations is going to be, what does a donation look like? If a rescue entity that's operating in Portland, Multnomah County, has a foster here in Marion County and they take in 20 dogs a year, but they don't they don't look for food donations, they don't ask for monetary donations, they pretty much foot the bill in care of the animals, then that foster wouldn't have to register because it's not accepting donations. They're paying for all of the care and well-being of the animals that they have in their care. So the accepting donations and 10 or more is going to eliminate and could potentially, if you have a hoarder, Commissioner Carlson, like you referred to, they wouldn't apply to our ordinance. We wouldn't have to have a registration.
So I guess the question then is, are there remedies or provisions under our ordinances that address if someone has 20 dogs or 20 cats and it's just an individual and they seem to be malnourished, or 20 horses, or whatever? I think the issue here was that they couldn't get on the property, but there are other provisions in the law, aren't they, to address animal cruelty or animal abuse or that type of thing that would relate to that? I could think that was the answer I was looking for, is what else is in the law other than this to try to address those problems? Absolutely.
For anybody that is dealing with any animal and their conditions or living conditions are unacceptable, state statute addresses abuse and neglect, and that would fall on law enforcement, which is what we do now.
And why was it, I guess, that if there is that provision in the law already of animal abuse and so on, why the need for this on top of it, and why was it that law enforcement wasn't able to get on the property in this particular instance that this particular law was trying to remedy?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I know that without this, if you're pursuing it under a law enforcement and an abuse or neglect case, then and if you were trying to obtain a warrant, you would have to establish that there were neglected animals.
You couldn't see them
and
because
you can't
they
see
were
them.
in a facility.
What the law, I think what it was intended to do and what it does do is, if you only have to count numbers or if you only have to provide evidence or information to a judge, that confirms that there are 10 or more, and if you can show which often our staff can do, looking on the internet, it seems, to determine who's obtaining or seeking or asking for donations, that your burden is much lower, and then you can get a warrant to get onto the property with this law in place. So it does do that. I don't know anything about the specifics of the other case, but again, the burden was higher because the standards were different.
Then to follow up on a second question that Commissioner Cameron asked, there is no state agency that oversees this. There's no one out there that's going to say you're not implementing it correctly. We use this word, you're using that word. So basically, it's up to us. They delegated the authority to the counties to implement, and the recourse is by citizens, individual citizens that would take us to court if they felt that we weren't implementing it correctly or to the extent that the law required, correct?
That's correct. There could be some doubling up because it applies to animals, not just dogs or cats, but if we're speaking in terms of wildlife,
Fish and wildlife.
so other state or federal agency could conceivably be involved in conjunction, but in terms of this program, if you will, there's no entity with the state overseeing our operation of this program.
And then just one last thing, this is a comment, not a question, but based on our discussion, I brought this issue to Association of Oregon Counties. We talked about it in our governance committee. Committees are kind of down for the summer, so I think we're also going to look at the Public Safety Committee to talk about this, and we have a meeting scheduled with Senator Courtney's staff. But there were 3 issues that are really identified as kind of needing clarity, I guess, in the legislation. And again, if the counties have the opportunity, and then there's no one out there saying, well, it really is this, not that. I mean, they may say, well, just go ahead and your ordinance is fine the way it is, and we don't need to change the law. That's a direction that they could give us. But we're going to go to them for some guidance, maybe to bring these to their attention. The one is the issue about the animal foster homes, and as you mentioned, Bruce, we put that in our ordinance. It's not specifically listed in the legislation. Doesn't mean it wouldn't be covered. It's just not clear whether it's covered or not, and we're saying it is. Licensing versus registration. We had a pretty healthy discussion about that at our prior meetings. And the problem, as I see it, and as I've expressed earlier, is if we try to license these entities like we license dogs or license, something else, it really, in essence, makes it look as if we're putting a stamp of approval on the quality of that organization, when essentially all we're doing is saying, sign up, and we're asking you to do all this. There's a lot of documentation that's required, as you mentioned, and then if we hear of a problem, then we're allowed on the premises to inspect the documentation. It's not like we're asking them to go through a test or follow standards or anything like that. So I'm much more comfortable with the word registering with the county rather than licensing. And the third issue is the multi-year licensing. And while the legislation does not say that you cannot do a multi-year license, it implies, and you infer from from the implication, I guess, when it talks about an annual renewal, that they're talking about an annual license. However, in our county, we do multi-year dog licenses, and it seemed more appropriate to align this registration process with that process. So that is what we do see in our ordinance. And again, if someone were really unhappy with us, I guess they could take that to court and say, hey, the statute says annual, and until that changes. But we've done an interpretation, I guess, of what works best for our county. But I'll be bringing that to the attention again of legislators to see whether or not they want to fix that or let it rest the way it is.
I had some of the same thoughts. In order, first of all, the statute, so it applies to the whole state to deal with an individual problem they had somewhere, and that always seems not to be the correct way. I think it's too vague in the unfunded mandate part of things. I mean, I'll go along with whatever you want, but as far as I'm concerned, bring on the writ, but see where we go.
Mr. Chair, let me get this up here. To avoid bringing on a writ, I will move that we adopt an ordinance revising and updating Marion County Code Chapter 6.05 relating to dog control by emergency procedure.
So then by reading by title twice.
That'd be the first motion. You would move that we read by title twice.
The ordinance revising and updating the Marion County Code Chapter 6.
Just make the motion to have the chair read it twice.
Oh, and that the chair would read the motion, the title twice due to emergency.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to read by title only twice in the matter of establishing animal rescue. I'm not doing that right. Marion County Code 605 relating to dog control. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm going to vote no. That'll tell you something. Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I tried that in 2013, and obviously it didn't work.
I know. So the second one,
You're going to read it?
oh, you're right. I just want to get rid with this one.
So you voted no on reading by title only twice.
All right, motion passed. Just not to prove the order. This is an ordinance revising and updating the Marion County Code, Chapter 605, relating to dog control and declaring an emergency. The second reading, an ordinance revising and updating the Marion County Code, Chapter 605, relating to dog control and declaring an emergency. And now then a motion to approve the ordinance. If you would.
Are
So
we
we
still
take
on
it- we
number
take-
one?
Yeah, we take it on two motions. So the first motion was just for the chair to read by title only twice. Now the second motion would be the full, to
Okay.
adopt it by emergency. So
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Again, to avoid whatever they would do to us, if we didn't adopt this, I move adoption of the ordinance revising and updating Marion County Code, Chapter 6.05, relating to dog control by emergency procedure.
I'll second the motion.
All right, it's moved and seconded to adopt the ordinance relating to Marion County Code, Chapter 605, dog control and declaring emergency. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh.
Aye.
And opposed would be 1. Motion passes. Now let's get to the fees. I had one note there, Commissioner Carlson was kind of get at it. I don't see in the order that it designate a time period. There is a fee for an initial certificate of $125 and renewal. But it doesn't, I don't see in this order that the term of that registration.
You are correct, Mr. Chair. So the ordinance has been adopted, 6.05.30 of our code, subsection 2 provides that you will establish a reasonable fee. The code states that the initial registration expires after 1 year and that the renewal expires after 2 years. But it's a good point. For clarification, I can add to this order, if you would prefer, clarification that the initial.
Seems like it should have been part of it to me, but.
And I think that's a good idea. Then it stands on its own. So, but I can add that language.
Certainly.
But the issue then is still, what would the board prefer to set these rates at? And what has been proposed is $125 for the initial, which we can add that it's a 1-year certificate of registration. And we have proposed $125 for a renewal, which lasts 2 years. And there were dog control and code enforcement to agree, but primarily dog control did a review of what would be required to handle the initial registration process, and then any enforcement process, and what would be required resource-wise in carrying out the program, and maybe they can provide some additional information for you.
So thank you, Commissioners, Mr. Chair. We did look at this issue as requested by the board, and as we looked at the administration costs, updating our existing database to include this and track this separately from our dog licensing, and consideration of the time and effort it would take of our dog officers in addition to what they currently do for dog services. And that's really what we looked at for the cost of the licensing or registration for this particular order. And I think it's just important for us to point out that we're really looking at a reasonable fee. We're trying to figure out, how do we get these foster families, these organizations and various entities that obviously care for animals. They want to make sure that they have appropriate healing or care during this time until they find another family to be with, that we have a process that is affordable to them so they don't go in hiding. We don't want to be so huge in its fee that people don't come forward and we spend more time doing this enforcement and chasing after. We want folks to be able to come forward and with this reasonable fee. We felt like $125 at this point in time, knowing nothing about really the impact. They're not on the radar other than what our staff at the dog services know about the resources that exist. We took a look at what we know and then did some assessments based on that. We received a quote on our database, the update for that. But there are so many variables that are not known. What's the cost of when something goes into investigation or we go into that field? We don't know what those costs include. So we're not even anticipating that the cost of these things would cover, this registration would cover the fees and services and expenditures of our dog shelter services, including the officers. Of course, there's fines that would be imposed on the court side, which is not something that Marion County benefits from or receives resources. So this was our best guess at this time based on the information that we looked at and anticipation of what is happening. We also, with the registration happening once every 2 years after the initial year, we felt that that would reduce our administration costs, that we wouldn't have to send out the letters, we wouldn't have to keep track of those on a year-end basis. We would look at that. We would look at it annually, but our cost to send out letters and reminders for a re-registration would not happen as frequently.
So this is not what I was expecting, I guess, and I don't know if I missed where we had a conversation about it prior to today. I know we have discussion about the language of the ordinance. So several questions. One is, what is the cost of doing the database, ballpark? Do you recall, Tammy, what that quote was?
It was approximately $5,000, off the top of my head.
So it's $5,000 in addition to what we budgeted.
Correct.
In order to revise the database to just collect 30 names?
Yeah.
I'm questioning that because,
Well,
I mean, you could do it on a simple spreadsheet
We
and
could
cost
do that.
zero.
We could do that, but then what we don't have is a tickler system, and the staff what we try to do is incorporate it into our infrastructure and not create another system of tracking so that it would come up automatically and be able to be managed more efficiently by the administration staff, as well as if an officer is in the field. We have been working on how to benefit from the use of technology to get things into the field, into the hands of our officers on an as-need basis. And spreadsheets are more difficult to look at.
Okay, well, I don't want to get into the how
Okay.
right here in front of everyone. I'm just saying, number one is I question that, all right? And number two, why is it that we're having an initial registration period of just a year and then having the rest 2 years? Why wouldn't we do everything for 2 years?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner,
I mean, if anything, it says it's an annual renewal in the statute. It doesn't talk about the initial. So I wouldn't say it's because the statute requires us to do that. So what's the rationale? And does it, and when I'm telling people that it aligns with how we do dog licenses, is an initial dog license a year or is it 2?
It depends on the rabies
Okay, well,
certificate.
just
but
general.
So 1 year.
It is
Yes.
1 year.
For
And
a
then
brand
re-
new dog, 1 year.
And then renewals are 2?
Renewals go up to 3 years. You can get a 1, 2, or 3 year renewal.
Okay, so all of a sudden, the entire rationale that I just spoke about in the last one is cattywampus, because this is not aligning with that. I can't. So Mr. Chair, I would like to actually not act on this today and have us go back and have some conversation about it. I'm not feeling, at least I can't vote yes on it today, so if you two are happy with going ahead, that's fine, but I can't, so.
I already brought up a question about not referring to the term of that, so, and that's really what you're saying too. So let's hold it over for a week and add it, see if we can get something, perhaps we'll set up for Monday, management update, talk about it a little bit more. And in the meantime, maybe you can come up with some proposals for us. You've heard we're looking for multi-year. I know it's complicated. We gauge dog license off rabies, and I know how it is. You can only get it for 1 year because your certificate's good for a year. That isn't a question here. But the other thought I had as I was listening to Commissioner Carlson, it could be that these, I don't know the right word, mercurial is what I'm going to use. You may get into it, try it, and not want to buy a 2-year license. You just want to see if you can make it work. And I have one other comment before I pass it to you. If anybody actually does sign up, I kind of want to know. That's all.
Mr. Chair, thank you. A point of clarification. We just adopted an ordinance on an emergency, but yet we're not going to implement a fee. So I just want to know how that impacts the department and what they're trying to do. But a fiscal impact statement at the state on Senate Bill 6, amongst other things, the last paragraph. This measure also creates requirements for animal rescue organizations, including record-keeping, licensure requirements, which is what we're talking about, and licensing fees, authorization for inspection of records by enforcing agencies, and civil penalties for violations. The licensure, this is what drives me crazy, and I think all of us up here, licensure fees and civil penalties would be paid to local governments, dog licensing and control enforcing agencies. The fiscal and revenue impact to local governments as a result of this measure is indeterminate.
Right.
So the big house says we don't give a crap.
Fine. All right, so we're clear. We'll bring, I don't know if we need to make a motion to do that. We're all in agreement. Let's go ahead and just make that, bring it back next Monday.
Right.
And in
Mr.
answer to your, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, well, maybe you're going to answer Commissioner Cameron's question about what it does to us fiscally, but my sense is you've still got a lot of setup to do, and a week isn't going to kill us, so.
We can hold an application or a request for a registration until we establish the fee.
Right, I mean, there's educational materials, all of that, and what I'm really looking for, and you know me, is I want to know the analysis that you went through to arrive, so what the amount of time. I mean, even if you had 30 entities and they all paid $125, that doesn't total your 5,000 you need for the database anyway. So I'm not sure, I mean, and Tammy, I totally agree with you that we want people to comply. And I'm thinking that if someone has paid nothing and all of a sudden they're asked to pay 125, that's kind of steep. So that's my sense of it. And when I broke it down in the initial and said, well, it's actually not 125 a year, it's 60, 250 or whatever a year. But then you said, well, but it is 1 year. That's where I broke down. So we can have some more conversation on Monday about it. But just to give you kind of my mental, walk you into my brain, which is dangerous.
And I want to clarify that when talking to our IT department about what this would look like, we were also in the process, or they were in the process of all the upgrades, and that was a guesstimate. So this will give me a chance to have a deeper conversation because I agree with you, Commissioner Carlson. I don't see the changes that we need to be that big of an impact because I would like to mirror our dog licensing. So.
All right, thank you all. We'll
Thank
see
you.
you Monday. Next item's under juvenile sheriff, something we may be able to agree on. Consider approval of a Proclamation designating July 13th to 19th, 2014 as Parole and Probation Officer Week in Marion County. Jeff Wood, Chuck Seibrandt, and the sheriff is here, but just watching, wants to know how government works, I see.
I think he wants to keep an eye on his division commander, commissioners.
Go ahead.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for a moment of your time. Before you is a request to approve a proclamation designated July 13th through 19th as Parole and Probation Officer Week in Marion County. Again, for the record, my name is Jeff Wood. I'm the division commander with Marion County Sheriff's Office. And as history indicates, the practice of probation and parole has played a vital role in our criminal justice system since 1841. Nationally, there are over 5 million people under community supervision. As a state, we supervise about 31,000 souls, and within Marion County, 3,700 people are under the responsibility of the Marion County Sheriff's Office Parole and Probation Division. Although different states and different jurisdictions have a variety of different organizational structures, the basic premise, regardless of the organization, is simple: prevent criminal activity and promote the reformative process. Over the last several years, the talented and dedicated staff of the Marion County Sheriff's Office Parole and Probation Division has engaged in a number of evidence-based practices and activities to provide support services, lower our recidivism rates, and enhance public safety. As examples, we have implemented effective practices of community supervision model of supervision. Our Transitional Services Unit, which is part of the Greater Marion County Reentry Initiative, has been nationally recognized, and I'd like to mention recently awarded as part of the Marion County Reentry Initiative a 3-year grant from the Bureau of Justice Assistance for people who have co-occurring mental health and drug and alcohol issues. Our Senate Bill 416 pilot program, although at the time not a viable program 4 years ago, because we in Marion County believed that the program had life, had justification and a cause in Marion County, is now being touted as a statewide model prison diversion program. And as Sheriff Myers mentioned in his speech during the budget session, we are truly excited for our jail reentry program to go online later this month. As a division, we strive for efficiency by focusing precious public resources towards our highest risk population and targeting specific risks that are linked to criminal behavior. With any given day, any of our staff may help a single mother find a job, arrest an absconder for violating his or her conditions of supervision, or make a referral to treatment or cognitive programming to overcome years of addiction or antisocial attitudes. Our parole and probation staff have a very complicated job. They're trained to be part coach, mentor, counselor, problem solver, crime prevention specialist, motivator, educator, and police officer. And I say that as the job in and of itself is very complicated. Human behavior by definition is complicated. And although we tend to look for very simplistic answers, a silver bullet, so to speak, to address criminal behavior, I would say after approaching my 19th year in this profession, there is no simple solution. It's the sum total of everything that community corrections does. And I'd like to say for the record, we have absolutely fantastic leadership, we have a fantastic community, and we have fantastic support for, admittedly, not the most warm and fuzzy population coming back into our community, but we see a benefit for people who don't commit new criminal acts, who don't violate the community's trust. And although recidivism is sort of an overly simplistic definition or standard that we base our worth on, I think the community effects, the benefits to the community, are significant and profound. We're talking about people who get jobs, people who find education, who get a GED, who even go on to community college, people who overcome years of addiction, families that become a nuclear unit once again, and the net result is public safety. And I think the Parole and Probation Division staff do an excellent job navigating this complicated world and making a difference in the community in which this proclamation is designated to recognize. With that, I will turn that over to Chuck.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mr. Chair. Thank you for taking the time to recognize our probation officers and all those that serve the community in the essence of public safety. But we've moved a long ways in the last 20 years. We've gone from just public safety to also working intently with kids, using through the evidence-based program. I guess I should. My name's Chuck Sybrandt. I'm the Deputy Director of the Juvenile Department, and to recognize not only probation officers but all of our staff and what we do. It's a fantastic thing that you come to work day in and day out for most of a negative type of a job, and they do such a wonderful job to come back and do their best. We have slightly over 100 employees, of which 23 are probation officers, and they use evidence-based services. And they start by developing a case plan, identifying those strengths and weaknesses with kids, as well as doing interventions with them to teach them skills to better manage the waters of the public, whether it be in school or employment or something like that. They also hold them accountable. If they don't follow the rules, they provide a consequence or don't complete the program or the treatment piece that is so essential for them to be successful. There are consequences for that. We also have our alternative programs, and now this is a program that provides skill development through work. It also provides some pay. They take that pay, it is applied to that, what they owe their victim, and to make them as whole as possible. We also have the Guaranteed Attendance Program, also known as GAP. It's a 20-bed shelter home for males and females, 2 separate buildings. They provide 200-plus hours of cognitive restructuring training. Kids go to school, they go to work, they come home, they have dinner, they work on their homework, they go through these programs. The counseling program, we have 4.5 therapists. What we have seen in the last 10 to 15 years is a large increase in mental health issues with our kids. These therapists will sit down and do treatment, or they will respond at a moment's notice to a high-risk acting out youth to do a risk assessment, to do a mental health screening, and to get them into treatment or to assist them through this event. We have the family support. The juvenile department focused mostly on 12 to 17-year-olds. This is an early intervention program for 9 to 13-year-olds. We get most of our referrals through the police department. However, school counselors who have been trained to do an assessment can refer a youth to this program. The family support person then not only connects with the child, but also works with the parents, their education program, removing barriers to services, and even some parenting pieces to help things go better at home. We have an educational advocates. They actually work with youth for credit recovery, dealing with learning disabilities, working with those to overcome those disabilities and remove those barriers. So hopefully they walk away with an educational degree. And then, of course, we have detention. For those who choose not to follow probation rules, there are short-term consequences. We also place youth in detention for community risk, or in a sense of risk to themselves while they await placement in a residential program. I brought some statistics for 2013. We had 2,279 criminal referrals. They produced 3,382 allegations, and 1,534 actual youth were referred to the department. In addition to that, we had violations referred, 1,333, minor in possession of alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, other violations in regards to city ordinances. I'd like to take a little bit of time here to recognize our peer courts. We have peer courts in Kaiser, Salem, Silverton, and state and sublimity. They do an excellent job of addressing a lot of these types of referrals that wouldn't be addressed because they do not reach a level of resource versus referral. And so they take an interest in their community, they address it at the low level, and we're extremely appreciative of that level of intervention. Our goal overall is that they don't come to the adult system. We're very successful. Our chronic offenders of 3 or more referrals is right around 4 to 5%. They take up 80% of your resources because they are more difficult to manage. But I think we do an excellent job. Staff come day in and day out to work with youth to the absolute last chance before we send them off to the state for state resources. So thank you again for your support, for these many years of support in providing the dollars and cents to provide the resources for these kids.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
Thank you both for your presentations, for bringing this proclamation before the board. We do this every year. I want to especially thank those men and women that are out there on the ground working every day to make lives better, and the juvenile or youth front with our juvenile department and with the adult offenders through parole and probation. As we have said every year, it's not an easy job. It's 24/7. It's working with people that sometimes don't want a lot of love in their life, and to have someone come in and offer guidance, sometimes carry a hammer, sometimes try to carry a carrot, and to move with them and to see change in lives. I mean, it's a critical job to keep the community safe and also to make people realize their potential. And we have wonderful people in Marion County that do that work. And I'm so grateful that they've chosen that profession and that they work for us. And it's very fitting that we do honor them this time of year. And then just to mention that there is also, I understand, Jeff, a picnic, right, next week at the Work Center to make that honor more concrete, is that?
Correct, Commissioner. We do on July the 17th at the Marion County Work Center. We are having our annual luncheon barbecue in recognition of the Parole and Probation Division staff. We will have the Honorable Judge Dennis Graves as a keynote speaker. Hopefully Sheriff Myers will do as well. He's nodding, so I'm assuming that's a yes. And so we will have some fun and festivities and recognition for our division staff.
And then the juvenile department picnic is the following Thursday, correct?
Correct, I believe that's the 25th.
24th is what it's like.
24th.
That's a Thursday?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the 24th.
And commissioners are invited, as well as the court, the district attorney's office, and we hope to have a fun time just recognizing a good year of hard work.
Great. Thank you.
All
Want me to
right.
make the motion, or do you want to go ahead and make comments? You're good? Okay. All right, so I would move that we approve this proclamation designating July 13th through 19th, 2014 as Parole and Probation Officer Week in Marion County.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
All right, it's moved and seconded to approve a proclamation designating July 13th, 19th as Parole Probation Officer Week. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. That motion passes. Now, as we typically do, we'll read that proclamation. Commissioner Cameron, perhaps if you can start out and read the first three. Yep.
In a matter of proclaiming the week of July 13th through 19th, 2014 as Parole and Probation Officer Week. Whereas the Marion County Sheriff's Office Parole and Probation Officers and the Marion County Juvenile Department probation officers are an essential part of Marion County criminal justice system. And whereas the parole and probation officers of Marion County play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of Marion County And whereas the parole and probation officers of Marion County recognize their duties to serve the people of Marion County by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, by supervising and monitoring the activities of adult and juvenile offenders living in Marion County. And
Whereas the parole and probation officers of Marion County are trained professionals who provide services and referrals for offenders, and whereas the parole and probation officers of Marion County work in partnership with community agencies and groups, and whereas the parole and probation officers of Marion County promote prevention, intervention, and advocacy, and
whereas the parole and probation officers of Marion County provide services, support, and protection for victims, and whereas the parole and probation officers of Marion County embrace evidence-based practices, utilize effective practices in community supervision, and are a true force for positive change, and whereas it is important that all Marion County citizens know and understand the duties, responsibility, hazards, and sacrifices of their parole and probation officers. Therefore, be it resolved that we, the Commissioners of Marion County, do hereby proclaim July 13th and 19th, 2014 as Parole and Probation Officer Week. Well, thank you for coming in this morning, and I've heard about the hard work you do. I appreciate that. We all do. And not just you, but all that you work with and for.
Thank you.
All right. The last thing to do this morning is to read the places we'll be together this week. I thought it'd be a short list with a holiday, but a two-pager anyway. Wednesday, today at noon, we have a Woodburn Marion County meeting, Luis's Taqueria, 523 Front Street in Woodburn. Tomorrow morning, Thursday the 3rd, 9:30 to 11:30, Department Head Elected Officials meeting. That'll be located here, Senator Hearing Room, first floor, 555 Court Street Northeast in Salem. Then 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, State Fair Council. I suspect that's you two are going. Oregon State Fairgrounds, 2330 17th Street Northeast, the Floral Building in Salem. Friday's the holiday that I know and love. Monday, Commissioner's Calendar Review at 8:30 in the Silverton Conference Room on the 5th floor, Courthouse Square. And that's followed at 9 o'clock with Management Update. Same location, Silverton Conference Room. And then Monday at 10 o'clock, I don't know if we have enough time to do all this, but there's a dedication, Oregon State Hospital Cremains Memorial. That'll be at the Oregon State Hospital, 2600 Center Street Northeast in Salem. At 1:15 Monday, Marion County Justice Court Ribbon Cutting Ceremony. That'll be in our new Justice Court, and that's at Hayesville Business Center, 4660 Portland Road Northeast, Suite 107, Salem. And scheduled at 3 o'clock, a Board of Commissioners, Chief Administrative Officers meeting, executive session if needed pursuant to ORS 192-660-2A, and I. That should cover most of them. Silverton Conference Room, 5th floor, 555 Court Street. Tuesday morning, 7:30, State and Marion County meeting at the Covered Bridge Cafe, 510 North 3rd in Staten. I don't know if people know that. It's local officials and anybody interested. It's certainly open to the public, all the meetings we have with the different communities. Then Tuesday at 10 o'clock, Service Districts meeting, the biannual meeting, Silverton Conference Room, 5th floor, Courthouse Square. Wednesday, 7:30 to 8:30, Marion County Chiefs of Police meeting, McNary Golf Course, Restaurant 155, McNary Estates Drive North in Kaiser. And then next Wednesday, the 9th at 9 o'clock, a regular board session here in the Senator Hearing Room, Courthouse Square. And that's followed by, at noon, a SEDCOR Economic Business Forum, Broadway Commons, 1300 Broadway Street in Salem. And also on Wednesday, 3:30, Economic Development Advisory Board, Commissioners Boardroom, 5th floor, Courthouse Square, 555 Court Street in Salem. So,
And, Mr. Chair, we only go 2 weeks on our calendar, but I would be remiss if I didn't state that the following day is the opening day of the Marion County Fair. So people need to get that on their calendars. That is July 10th through the 13th. We had a presentation, it was last week, about all the wonderful
So
things
you're
going
making
on
me
there.
think of something. Did you work at Bob's?
I did. That
I
was
thought so.
my first job was Bob's Kaiser Drive-In.
Okay, I gotta
Yep.
explain. That was the place to go when we were in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, I'm driving, what street is it? Summer, Capitol? I don't remember.
It's not there
It's
anymore.
gone!
Right, all the Bobs are gone.
Yeah, how does that, no, but the whole building's
Right,
gone.
yeah, they raised it, yeah.
Yeah. They can't get rid of a building that means nothing to me at the hospital, but one that's really significant, that really has some history, and you probably serve me a shake.
Well, I worked at the one out by McNary.
Oh,
So did you go to that one out there?
No, that wasn't the one I'm
That's where
talking about.
Carl's Jr. is now, but
But that was a place the
Right.
kids from outlying, small communities came to.
I was telling people yesterday too, I still know how to make the Bob's secret sauce. Because I made vats and vats and vats. of
I bring it up
And the
because-
tartar sauce. Tartar sauce was very good.
Because they're reestablishing at the county and the state fairs, and people are talking about it. I think
Yeah.
there's others exciting.
I'm on the Bob's Facebook. I'm a member of
Are
the
you?
Bob's Facebook page.
Oh, well, then you're
right?
the person to come to. And I'd
Yeah.
like some of that sauce if you ever make any more vats.
Yeah, they won't be 19 cents. I read they're going to be like $2.19.
What?
But yeah, still.
It jumped to 29 cents, I remember. It was
Yeah.
a disaster. But in the old days, you could get a whole sack and a chocolate shake for like $2. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
The 219 may be due to a commissioner who's been working on the fair, making it to be a better fiscal outcome.
I had nothing to do with the 219, but yeah.
I was
I
gonna
think
get a
I think
whole-
today's costs probably have gone up since the
Trust me,
1960s
they're going
when it
up
was
every day in
19
the back
cents.
door.
Yeah.
Yeah, commodities.
So activities for the 4th without saying you'll be out of town or gone, good things?
Oh, yeah, great things.
Fireworks in Detroit.
I'm actually attending a fundraiser to help support the fireworks in
Oh.
Detroit, which happened on the 5th. That's a great event up there. People can get up there and watch them from the side of the lake or in their boats in the lake. So we'll be making sure everybody's safe up there.
You going to the Oregon Gardens, see the fireworks?
That's the 3rd, and I've signed, I said I plan to. It depends on if, I don't like to go alone. If Tammy wants to go, we'll go. I don't know how to say it different than that, but I know it's a great event that I've never seen. Everybody
Yeah, I've
talks
not
about
seen
it.
either.
And we did up it a little bit, so we'll have a bit bigger fireworks display than was held there last year. Got the rodeo on the 4th, that's always a highlight, almost a family reunion kind of thing for me, and then afterwards, sell fireworks at the Rotary booth in Staten. I don't really enjoy that a lot, but it's part of the deal. That's one of our main fundraisers. And then I'm thinking, there may be a salmon that wants to meet me out. I just don't know where yet. It's all good.
All salmon beware.
Could be
Put out the
anywhere.
vibes there.
All right, anything else?
Have a great 4th.
All right, let's call this meeting adjourned.
I made a mistake.
You did.
I will be here next